So now that we have a finished model, you're probably going to want to try to find a way of running that. A couple things to note here is that right now I'm using a Windows machine. You can actually check how many processors it's running by looking at the task manager. This one only has 4 processors, so it's pretty it's not very good for doing a computational FDS model like this. But there's a couple things to keep in mind when you're running FDS. Running FDS like this is using a single mesh configuration. So as you probably recall, I broke my model into 6 meshes. You'll probably break yours into a number of different meshes based on what your mesh resolution studies show. You can run FDS in a single processor mode using OpenMP here. I wouldn't suggest it. I would actually suggest running it in parallel. It's going to be significantly faster. OpenMP is good, but it is very limited in terms of the speed up it can achieve. Pyrosim also provides option for using a cluster. We don't have a cluster available to us, but that's an option if you're in an organization that has that sort of thing. The other thing to note is that, as I said before, Pyrosim is just a preprocessor for FDS. So one of the things that we usually do in my professional setting is we'll just export an FDS file because we're going to be running FDS not through Pyrosim. A thing to keep in mind is that you get these Pyrosim's licenses as part of your student, as part of being a student. However, in our organization, you probably won't be able to run it through Pyrosim because you're going to be using a license while you're using it. So running it through just FDS is probably more advantageous. So it's good to know that you can just export an FDS file and have it here and just run it that way as well. And so you should be at least somewhat familiar with the code that's being used. If you're not, I would highly suggest taking Professor Dempsey's class. It's going to give you a very in-depth view of how to do that, but for this class, we're really looking at how we can run these files and learn how to change the design of the building from them. But it's important to kind of understand some of the things that are in here when you're running these. You shouldn't run them blind, and you should always check your work in terms of what you're going to be running. So yeah, so there's a couple of options for you to run your files. You can run them on your own computer through Pyrosim by just hitting Run FDS Parallel. It's going to crash on this computer because it's not going to be powerful enough to run this model. If you have a Mac or a Linux computer, you can also install FDS on there. But I would actually suggest you running it on the remote resources that we have available for you to run things on. So if you're not on campus, which I think many of the students aren't, you can connect to the remote desktop using Network Connect. You can go to vpn.wpi.edu, or if you have it installed, you can just do it this way. And this will connect you to the remote desktop feature. So once you log into the VPN, then you can go to the remote desktop that we provided to you. So that would be arcslab at wpi.edu. And just make sure that this is connected before you try to go to the remote desktop, because otherwise it won't work. So now it's connected. So we can go like this. Put in your username and password, your WPI username and password, your Windows password, and then it will connect. That warning always happens, so just ignore it. Same there. And so the way this is working is they have installed both FDS and Pyrosim onto this machine. So I'd recommend just going to your Documents folder and adding new folder to run your monolith on. So the best way to do this is you can go to wherever you saved your Pyrosim file, like this. And you can copy your FDS file. I'll show you both of them. You can copy those into here. If you're using a Mac computer and you're using a remote desktop there, there's a little bit different way that you're going to have to do this. You have to connect to your hard drive using a different feature. So if anybody has problems with that, they can feel free to reach out to me and I can provide them some information regarding that. Linux computer, you can remote in as well. It's going to be a little bit different. If you have problems there, you can also reach out. But yeah, okay, so now they're both here. So in the same way, you can open Pyrosim as you do on your normal computer. Okay, so now you can see that Pyrosim is ready. You loaded your model in there, so looks good. So you can just run FDS parallel, and that will ramp up for you. If you look at the task manager here, you can see that there are a number of CPUs available to you, and there's a lot of memory on this machine. Just remember that this is a shared resource, so if you start running 10 different FDS models all using a CPU at once, WPI is not going to be happy and they will likely shut down your access. So try to limit the number of models you're running simultaneously. I'll just show you the other technique that you can use if you're wanting to learn how to do this not using Pyrosim. you can set up a batch file and use the Windows command prompt to do that. Ooh. Okay, so if you see this error, I guess that means that you can't run two processes at the same time. I'm already running one here, so you can just see what it looks like now. This window will pop up. It's going to be using 653, 6 processes, all that stuff. So there's that. And then if you're running this on your own computer or a different computer, you have more domain over, control over, you can actually use the CMD, and what you can do is you can just type in FDS to see what type of FDS is installed. You can see here that they're using 620 as the FDS that's in their environmental variables window. Automatically they're using 4 OpenMP threads, so that's fine. A key thing to remember about 620 is that's when NIST started to implement Hydra as their multiprocessor process manager, their MPI process manager, and they stopped using SMPD. So if you're having issues on your own computer and you have Pyrosim that's older than this year or something, you should look and see if SMPD is installed instead of Hydra. And there's several ways to detect whether that is happening or not. But for 620, they're all going to be using Hydra, so just keep that in mind. You need to figure out where FDS is actually installed, and it's usually in the same place every time. It's there. So when you make your batch file to run FDS, oops, okay, we're not going to be using a password file. And, oh wait, yes, we are. And just start. Yeah. Okay. So this is a very basic batch file that you can use to run your FDS file. It's likely not going to work here because FDS doesn't give you permission to do this. Oops. So I just wrote it to CD into the folder that this is in here, and then it's going to start the thing, but as you can see, it rejects the MPI interface, so you cannot use it. However, if you have your own computer and you're running Windows, this is the best way to do it. If you have a Mac, you can set up a shell script or a bash script to do the same thing. If you have a number of laptops available to you, you can set up your own cluster if you so desire. It's a little bit tricky, but it can be managed if you're so inclined. So I guess that's it. But that's how you can use a remote desktop. I think the easiest way for most students will be to load their file into Pyrosim and run it using FDS parallel. If you use it, FDS, just run FDS. It's going to use OpenMP to run it, and it will be significantly slower. Um,